What is the CIA doing inside Venezuela? And why did President Trump just admit he authorized covert operations in a foreign country without Congress even knowing? According to the Associated Press, Trump has now openly confirmed that he greenlit CIA missions in Venezuela, targeting what he claims are drug networks and prisoner smuggling routes into the U.S. But Reuters reports there's more. This includes a $50 million bounty to go after Venezuela's president alone and millions of dollars on other officials. Venezuela now says this is an illegal foreign invasion disguised as counterterrorism and warns it could trigger war. Today, I'm going to break this down step by step. No propaganda, no party spin, just what's really going on. Grab a coffee, smash that subscribe button for instant updates and be the first to know when headlines drop. We go deep when others stay silent. Here's how this is going to go. In this video, we are going to break down how U.S. military operations started in Venezuela, how it escalated from drug boat strikes to CIA boots on the ground, why Venezuela matters, oil, geopolitics, and global power realignment, why Colombia, China, and Russia are suddenly part of this, and how this could become America's next endless war right now before our eyes. And yes, we're going to follow the money, the oil, and the power deals behind this operation. Because let's be real, wars aren't started for humanitarian reasons. There's always a deeper play. Let's get into it. The official timeline begins like this. According to U.S. Southern Command, American naval and Air Force units began drug interdiction missions in the Caribbean and near Venezuela. The Pentagon said this was about stopping cocaine trafficking into the United States. Sounds clean, sounds justified, sounds patriotic, right? Except, El País and Reuters confirm. Those missions included U.S. destroyers, F-35 fighter jets, and even B-2 stealth bombers. Let me ask you, when is the last time we needed stealth bombers to go after drug boats? Suddenly, things didn't add up. Now let's talk oil because nobody talks about Venezuela without talking about energy. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world, larger than Saudi Arabia. Think about that for a second. If oil is global power, Venezuela is sitting on a nuclear-level energy weapon. And the US knows that. Every major power knows that. So while Washington talks about human rights and democracy, you absolutely must ask, is this really about protecting democracy or protecting oil access? Here's the timeline no one disputes. In 2014, oil prices crashed. Venezuela's economy collapsed. The U.S. slapped sanctions on Venezuela. Maduro survived because Russia, China, and Iran stepping in. Now pause and ask yourself, if this were only about human rights, why were sanctions lifted slightly in 2023, only to be reimposed again in 2024? Nothing moral changed. Maduro didn't suddenly become a saint. No elections were resolved. No prisoners were released. So what changed? Here's what changed. The US and Europe need cheap oil fast thanks to inflation and Ukraine war supply shocks. Chevron and other oil giants started negotiating direct deals in Venezuela. China just signed long-term infrastructure agreements with Caracas. Russia has assets inside PDVSA, the Venezuelan oil firm. You see what's happening? Energy control equals geopolitical power. And right now, the US is in a race, not just with Venezuela, but with other powerful countries already there. So now ask yourself another question. If this is just about oil access, why do we suddenly see CIA presence reported in Venezuela? This didn't start yesterday. We'd already seen mysterious U.S. security advisors spotted near the Colombia-Venezuela border. Arms flows to anti-Maduro rebel cells. Training camps in Colombia funded by private interests. A failed coup in 2020 called Operation Gideon, led by U.S. ex-Green Berets. Real story, Google it. Back then, the White House denied involvement. U.S. Special Forces denied involvement. The CIA said, and I quote, "No comment." Translation, When the CIA says no comment, you already know the answer. But what's happening right now is much bigger. According to multiple Latin American investigative outlets and European intel leaks, CIA teams have been rotating in and out of Venezuela through neighboring countries, primarily Colombia, Guyana, and Curaçao. Yes, that Curaçao, the tourist island. It hosts a U.S. surveillance base right off Venezuela's coast. And here's the kicker. Recent leaks claim CIA operatives have begun organizing and financing sabotage networks inside Venezuela, targeting energy infrastructure, radar stations, and military command nodes. Why sabotage? Because you soften a regime before you attack it. You destabilize from the inside before pushing from the outside. Classic CIA doctrine. Same thing we saw in Libya, same thing we saw in Syria, same thing in Nicaragua in the 80s. It's a playbook. And now that playbook has arrived in Venezuela. So the table is set for the real question. Is the US preparing for war with Venezuela or preparing a regime change operation? Let me say that it's a mystery, but the obvious answer should be no. I don't think the Pentagon wants a ground war in South America. The US public doesn't want another war. Chances are, Congress won't authorize it. And even if they try, it can get messy because Russia, Iran, and China could jump in fast. But, and this is critical, that does not mean Washington is stepping back. Instead, we're entering what I call a shadow war phase. You don't invade, you choke, you pressure, you sabotage, you cut air, land, and digital access, and you break the regime from the inside using foreign operatives and paid factions. Look at the signals. They're everywhere already. Economic warfare, sanctions pressure, Venezuela's banks and oil flows. Diplomatic isolation. US pushes OAS and EU to question Maduro's legitimacy. Internal destabilization. CIA-linked funding to activist networks. Military tension. US jets and warships now monitor Venezuelan threats near Guyana border. Media operation. Editorial lines now say Venezuela is a threat to hemispheric security. Cyber warfare. Growing reports of attempted hacks against Venezuela's state grid. Does this look like preparation for peace or preparation for regime destabilization? Before we go deeper, quick reminder, if you're still watching, that means you're locked in and you're exactly the kind of mind we need here. Independent thinkers who want truth, not corporate scripts. Real quick, smash that like button so YouTube pushes this to more people. Drop a comment. Shadow war coming? I want to see how many of you get what's really happening. And if you're new, subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this series dropping this week. Alright, back to Venezuela. Now here's a trick straight from US foreign policy history. Pick a border fight, then use it as justification for intervention. It's Iraq-Kuwait playbook. It's Georgia-Ossetia playbook. Same thing. Enter Guyana. Tiny country, but massive offshore oil reserves discovered by ExxonMobil. Venezuela claims 2/3 of Guyana's territory, the Essequibo region. Maduro recently held a national referendum to annex it. Escalation? 100%. And guess who suddenly became Guyana's best friend? The United States. U.S. Southern Command sent full military advisors there. Training drills with the Guyana Defense Force began. ExxonMobil is now playing geopolitics, not just business. So what happens now? This border tension gives Washington a legal excuse. We're not invading Venezuela. We're just defending Guyana, our democratic partner. Classic narrative pivot. Very clever. You expand military presence near Venezuela without technically declaring war on Venezuela. But if this continues, we are one drone strike, one false flag, one escalation away from direct combat. And when that happens, you better believe CIA involvement goes from covert to strategic. All right, now we go deeper. We've laid the framework. Now let's dig into the CIA presence inside Venezuela. Let's be clear, this isn't speculation. This isn't internet tinfoil talk. This comes from reporting by the Associated Press, Reuters, and Latin American outlet El País, and statements confirmed directly by Trump himself. The Associated Press reports that Donald Trump admitted he authorized covert CIA operations in Venezuela during his first term, and that those operations have continued. Trump said the mission was aimed at narco-traffickers and prisoners being sent to the U.S., but did not deny political targeting of the Maduro regime. Reuters confirmed this secret directive represented a sharp escalation of U.S. strategy toward Venezuela, including a $50 million bounty for Nicolas Maduro and $10 million each for senior officials. And El País reports Venezuelan officials publicly accused CIA teams of recruiting Venezuelan military officers and sabotaging oil infrastructure inside the country. These aren't small chess moves. These are regime-breaker tactics. And let's ask the obvious question. If this was just about drugs, why is the CIA recruiting inside the Venezuelan army? Why target generals and colonels? Why weaponize internal dissent? Because the mission has always been bigger. So what is the CIA actually doing? Here's what sources and analysts suggest is happening. Operation type: recruitment of military officers. Objective: influence chain of command, prevent loyalty to Maduro. Operation type: oil and power sabotage. Objective: create instability, weaken public trust in government. Operation type: human intelligence networks, HUMINT. Objective: track top Venezuelan security movements. Operation type: target mapping. Objective: identify regime survival assets like safe houses, command bunkers. Operation type: covert extraction teams. Objective: prepare capture exfil plans for high-value targets. Operation type: information warfare. Objective: seed dissent inside security and political networks. The number one CIA goal right now isn't invasion, it's fracture. Break the regime from the inside, so Venezuela collapses without a big US military footprint. Smart? Yes. Dangerous? Extremely. Legal? Venezuela says absolutely not, calling it a violation of international law and an act of war. Before we cover the aim of these operations inside Venezuela, hit me in the comments real quick. Question for you. Do you think CIA operations prevent war or cause bigger wars? Emery, what's the prize here? Why the intensity? Venezuela isn't just a headline, it sits on assets that move markets and geopolitics. What's really at stake?
Well, Jordan, this is where the story stops being abstract and becomes very, very practical. Venezuela holds huge proven oil reserves, the largest on paper in the world, concentrated in the Orinoco Belt. That oil is heavy and costly to process, but in a high-price environment, it's a strategic energy asset. Beyond oil, reports have increasingly flagged Venezuela's goldfields in the south and lithium deposits that matter for batteries and electric vehicles. In short, energy, strategic minerals, and precious metals. Everything an industrial economy cares about.
So energy security, rare minerals for EVs and defense tech, and gold liquidity for sovereign coffers, that's the mix. But how does Washington act on that interest without openly invading? That's where covert tools come in, right?
Exactly. If you want influence without overt military deployment, you use proxies, sanctions, economic pressure, clandestine operations, and diplomatic isolation. The Associated Press has reported that U.S. officials authorized covert actions citing drug trafficking and other threats. Reuters has tied some directives to a steep price on the table. Reports of large bounties for information leading to Maduro's arrest circulated in recent coverage. Whether you call it pressure or regime change strategy, the objective lines up with the natural resources and geopolitical leverage at stake.
And when resource interests mix with clandestine operations, you get a volatile cocktail. Who gains? Who loses? And how will this benefit ordinary Americans? It's something we are watching closely. What do you think? Is this a necessary objective to spend federal funds on, or a dangerous violation of international law? Let us know your honest thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown crucial, Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. Thanks.